right, LA burning, the riots 25 years later. Today, I'm going to have some questions for many of the folks who are in the film, as well as the creators and the producers. What was your sense as you were doing this?
This event affected all of us cross-culturally throughout the city. We are a family of people. How can we learn from this event so that there's not another flashpoint? How can we build from this?
Police brutality, racial profiling, mass incarceration, it seems that nothing has changed but the year.
We really wanted to open up that dialogue. We felt it was important for us to look at what is not being done in terms of justice.
So you see this beating and you finally feel like, at last, people recognize that, this has been going on in our communities. As outraged as people were watching it, it was sort of a relief. You felt somewhat vindicated that America finally gets a chance to see it.
Just seeing Rodney King beating wasn't enough for the people to go out and express themselves. They didn't just see the riot beating, because that should have been enough to see cops beat on some black man and you want to take up arms or to go out and make some noise, but it wasn't. What it was there was no justice behind it.
I'm still upset. Yes. 25 years later. I'm more mad now than I was 25 years ago.
All of us are survivors.
This is not the way to overcome racism.
Believe it or not, all of us are victims. Obviously, my life will never be the same. How can it ever be the same?
I suspect that I'm the only police officer or retired police officer sitting in this group this evening.
Even though the 4 officers that beat Rodney King were highlighted, there was like another 10 or 12 others who were just kind of standing around, kind of watching. And did anything ever happen to them?
The officers that stood around there and did absolutely nothing, they're as guilty or more guilty than the 4 or 5 officers that were involved in it. And I can no longer distinguish between law enforcement and the military. We have a far greater problem in this country than what we've seen this evening. I will know how successful this movie is because I'll be able to gauge it by the death threats that I receive for participating and my strong feelings.
When I was videoing this guy down in the streets, I was just videoing him. I didn't think nothing of it at the time that I wanted to help him. That was in my heart. This guy's getting the shit beat out of him, just like somebody should have ran and helped Rodney King. He was just out there that day having a good time and seeing the world getting tore down.
25 years later, I think it was essential that LA burned. You saw the rage in this man, and I get it now, 25 years later. And we're fighting. You have to fight and stake out your territory in this country. And if you don't, you're just going to be run over.
So 25 years later, we finally have an opportunity to put some space, distance, and some thought in what happened and what took place. And now we can look at both sides and see what it was that brought us to this place. And we can look at the people involved, how it affected the communities, how we got to that space in the first place. And now 25 years later, we got an opportunity to see how far we've come.
I think that it's very important sometimes to really tell stories that are very, very hard-hitting, very, very emotional, sometimes very, very painful, but really to shine a light on them. And that's what we're supposed to do as storytellers anyway.
This is a brutalization of truth. That's the tragedy of America.
We thought that videotape was going to make a difference 25 years ago.
A state of emergency has been declared in Los Angeles County.